Didn't seem that long ago that I did a Calgary Flames game recap. However, we had a stretch of 5 games in 7 nights, and I'm going to say the fuel tank wasn't big enough to sustain that, all things considered. However, I'm going to say the Calgary Flames ultimately did have some time to refuel the tank and also on the roster. You know what I mean? As it's time for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Flames in 6. And here we are up to season number 4, episode number 11, as I'll talk about and recap how games 55 to 60 went for the Calgary Flames during the 2021-22 NHL regular season, as we are getting down into the final quarter of the season. And I'm going to say the way things are looking, not only playoffs are on the horizon, I'm expecting this team to not only just make the playoffs and just be dandy to have a cameo in the first round. I expect this team, the way they're playing, to not only get in the playoffs, but let's say win a few series, at least get to the Final Four, and maybe their dream, get to the finals and win a cup. But I'll tell you, the things are looking right now, I think we're getting there. And of course, the Calgary Flames made another transaction during this stretch as well. So before I get into my notes and recap how a very busy stretch the Calgary Flames had, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans' journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my channel, and of course I have my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts as well, so I appreciate like, subscribe, both here on my main channel as well as my second channel, as I gradually do keep pumping out content when I have the chance to do so. So let's bring up my notes and let's recap how games 55 to 60 went. As I mentioned, the Flames needed to use every ounce of fuel in that tank, and when you look at the strength of the schedule and just the nature of the schedule itself, I think we did alright, but it definitely became apparent that that tank was empty when we got to the end of that 5 games in 7 night stretch. However, I think we have refueled nicely as well, both on the ice and just getting some rest in between. So let's get started with the episode. So game 55, let's go back to Monday, March the 7th, as the Calgary Flames were at home, as they were taking on the Edmonton Oilers. This was a 7:30 puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome, and this game was the rescheduled game from Monday, December the 27th. So in terms of games being rescheduled and played, all the home games have now been played. There's still 2 more road games that the Calgary Flames have had to get postponed and rescheduled when they were going to be on the road against the Chicago Blackhawks and the Nashville Predators. But those games will get replayed in the middle of April. So let's bring on the Battle of Alberta, and I'm definitely going to say, all things considered, this was a fairly tame Battle of Alberta. There was no Zach Kassian and Matthew Tkachuk. There was no goalie fights, or there wasn't too many fights for this one. This one was kind of a plain oatmeal or cream of wheat for a Battle of Alberta. But maybe they don't want to show things off too much. It meant that we happened to play in the playoffs. But there was no scoring to report in the first period, so it was still no score going in the second period, as it was a very, very tentative first period. As I said, there wasn't too many fisticuffs in the first period as well. There was a little bit of it in the second period, with Evander Kane getting in with Matthew Tkachuk on a face-off early in the second period, because Evander Kane recently did get picked up by the Edmonton Oilers after the San Jose Sharks were able to move on from him. But in the second period, we had the first goals of the game, as both went to recently acquired Tyler Toffoli for the Calgary Flames. What we got from the Montreal Canadiens. As he got his 15th of the season, first goal of the game at 6:27 of the second period to make it 1-0 for Calgary on the power play. And then the second goal for Tyler Toffoli, his 16th of the season, came at 9:54 of the second period to make it 2-0 for Calgary. And that's actually how things stood after the first period. So other than those couple goals and a little bit of Matthew Tkachuk and Vander Kane in the face-off early in the second period, that was it for anything else outlandish, outrageous for Battle of Alberta. As I said, this was definitely a very tame Battle of Alberta, considering what we've had history in the past. So Calgary up 2-0 going into the third period. So going into the third period, it was Devon Shore who scored for the Edmonton Oilers, as he got his third of the season at 4:57 third period to make it 2-1. And then the game remained 2-1 tight for most of the game. However, Johnny Gaudreau definitely had the dagger. He scored his 23rd of the season at 17:07 of the third period to make it 3-1. And ultimately, the Calgary Flames were able to hang on to this one and take this one 3-1 in the Battle of Alberta, as it was 3-1 for Calgary. Calgary also had a slight edge in shots, 29-28 against the Edmonton Oilers. So right now, if you look at the season series, Calgary finally gets one on the Edmonton Oilers, as the Edmonton Oilers won 5-2 on the season opener on October 16th, and they also won 5-3 on January 22nd. Both of those games were in Edmonton. So Calgary has home serve in the season series, and of course March 26th will be the last time the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers will play in the regular season, and hopefully maybe we'll have playoff series. It's been 32 years, or 31 years I should say, that we last played each other in the playoffs. So anyways, the Calgary Flames, well, it was Tyler Toffoli with the 2 goals and Johnny Gaudreau with a goal and assist. Goaltending started the game, Jacob Markstrom. He made 27 saves for Calgary, while the Edmonton Oilers, it was Mikko Koskinen who made 26 saves for Edmonton. So game 55 I should say, started off well as the Calgary Flames won 3-1 against the Edmonton Oilers. So game 56, this happened on the next night, on Tuesday, March the 8th, as the Calgary Flames are now hosting the Washington Capitals. And this one was definitely kind of an interesting and emotional game, because Alexander Ovechkin came to town, and especially, not to get too political, but he's a Russian, and there's definitely were some boo birds on Alexander Ovechkin. But he's also a talented player, and he is also chasing down a goal record. So he actually did make some history in this game. But how did Calgary do anyway with the Washington Capitals at hand? Well, Calgary actually did get on the board first, as it was Elias Lindholm who scored his 28th of the season. This was at the 9:40 mark of the first period. So Calgary struck first, and it took a 1-0 lead, and that's how things stood. After the first period, Calgary up 1-0. Both teams were playing very steady. Second period, the Calgary Flames did press back, but the floodgates definitely opened when it comes to offense overall. As actually Calgary made it 2-0, as it was Adam Ruzicka who got his 5th goal of the season at the 8:54 mark on the second period. He's definitely been a nice plugging fourth liner for the Calgary Flames, bottom 6 forward for the Calgary Flames this season. So it was 2-0 for Calgary. However, Connor Sheary got Washington on the board, as he scored his 15th of the season at 10:27 to make it 2-1 at that point. And then the guys mentioned the main star of this game, Alexander Ovechkin. He got on the board and tied up the game for the Washington Capitals, as he scored his 35th goal of the season. Yes, I did say it right, 35th goal of the season. This was at the 13:23 mark of the second period to top the game at 2-2, and that's actually how things stood. After the second period, game tied up at 2-2. Going into the third period, there was definitely a lot more offense overall. It was Calgary who regained the lead to make it 3-2, as it was Oliver Shillington who got his 7th goal of the season at the 3:45-minute mark to make it 3-2 for Calgary. However, Anthony Mantha, he tied it up for Washington. This was at the 8:21-minute mark of the third period to make it 3-3. However, then Washington ultimately took over this game. As Nick Dowd, who got his 8th goal of the season to make it 11:50 at the third period to make it 4-3 for Washington. And then going into the final couple minutes of the third period, the Calgary Flames pulled the goalie, and ultimately history got made as Alexander Ovechkin. He took advantage of the empty net, got his 2nd of the game, 36th of the season, and 766th of his career at that time. What's so significant about that is that he tied Jaromir Jagr for 3rd in goals all time. Since then, he has surpassed Jaromir Jagr to be 3rd in goals of all time. But that empty netter goal was the goal to tie Jaromir Jagr, who, by the way, he did briefly play for the Calgary Flames and the Washington Capitals. But Alexander Ovechkin definitely adds his goal tallies, and I think he does have what it takes to break Wayne Gretzky's record. He needs another 120 goals to go to get 895. And then it was 5-3 at that point, and it was apparent that the Calgary Flames weren't going to take this one. However, Elias Lindholm got his 2nd of the game to his 29th of the season at 19:20 of the third period to get us some last-second hope, but ultimately the Calgary Flames came on the wrong end of this one, losing 5-4. So when it comes to shots and goal, actually the Calgary Flames did actually outshoot the Washington Capitals 35-27 overall. As I mentioned, it was Washington that won this one 5-4. And look at the season series, well, Calgary and Washington split, as Calgary won in overtime back on October 23rd, 4-3, and then Washington won this one 5-4. So it was a split. So leading the way for the Calgary Flames, well, it was Elias Lindholm who had the 2 goals, and it was Rasmus Andersson who had 2 assists. Then when it comes to the goaltending story of this game, it was actually Dan Vladar who was in net for this one, as Calgary had some bunch of games, as I mentioned. He made 22 saves on 26 shots. Then when it comes to the Washington side of the puck, well, Alexander Ovechkin led the way with the 2 goals to get closer to Wayne Gretzky, the all-time goals against. And then Nick Jensen also had 3 assists, so those are the 2 multi-point getters for the Washington Capitals. And who was in that? It was Vitek Vanecek, who made 31 saves for the Washington Capitals. So after winning against the Edmonton Oilers, which is always great to beat Edmonton under any circumstances, the Calgary Flames were not able to contain Washington and Alexander Ovechkin. So that's the game 56. Game 57, oh boy, Thursday, March the 10th, the Calgary Flames are still at home. Doesn't get any easier as they were hosting the dreaded Tampa Bay Lightning. That was a 7 p.m. buck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome, and I always say, for June 2004 reasons, they are the dreaded Tampa Bay Lightning. So how did the Calgary Flames do against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champions? And can we dare say, Stanley Cup final preview? Revenge 18 years later? Good dream, but let's talk about the game at hand. Actually, the Calgary Flames did actually open up the scoring, so they have no problem opening up the scoring, as it was Johnny Gaudreau scored a power play goal, his 24th of the season, at 7:35. So Calgary had a 1-0 lead, and that's how things stood after the first period, as Calgary looked like they were playing well, keeping up with the Tampa Bay Lightning in this one. However, going in the second period, you had to wait till later in the second period to get all your offense. So if you had time to grab a beer or grab some extra popcorn or nachos in the game, you would have not missed too much until late in the second period. Well, Tampa Bay ultimately tied up the game at 1-1, as it was Alex Killorn who got his 18th of the season. This wasn't until 15:40 of the second period. However, Calgary scored twice late in the first period, as Calgary regained the lead, as it was Johnny Gaudreau who got his 2nd goal of the season, or 2nd goal of the game, 25th of the season at exactly 19 minutes to make it 2-1 for Calgary. And then with literally 8 seconds to go in the second period, as Michael Backlund said, "Hey, I want to score too," as he got his 9th of the season, 1952. So Calgary, on the strength of 2 last-minute goals of the second period, they have a 3-1 lead against the Tampa Bay Lightning going into the third period. And then going into the third period, the Calgary Flames were able to keep pressing and keep up with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And ultimately, it was Johnny Gaudreau who got the hat trick, his third goal of the game, 26th of the season at 13:44 of the third period, to make it 4-1 for Calgary. And then there was some last-second frustration with Steven Stamkos and Sean Monahan late in the third period, as there was some rough stuff there. But ultimately, the Calgary Flames, it's just as good to beat Tampa Bay as it is to beat Edmonton and Vancouver. As the Calgary Flames, they won 4-1 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, kind of matching exactly the season series when the Calgary Flames lost 4-1 to Tampa Bay in January 6th. So we'll see. Could this be a potential Stanley Cup final preview? You got to put that out there, because Calgary's looking like one of the top teams in the West. Tampa Bay is still looking pretty good as 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. So leading the way for the Calgary Flames, obviously that goes to Johnny Gaudreau with 3 goals for the hat trick. And Rasmus Andersson also picked up another 2 assists in this one. And it was Jacob Markstrom who was in net for this game. He made 30 saves for Calgary. So going to the Tampa Bay Lightning, it was Andrei Vasilevsky who was in net for Tampa Bay. He made 28 saves for the Lightning. So after Calgary beat Edmonton, they lost to Washington. That was worth the price to pay to beat Edmonton and Tampa Bay, as I would say, in this homestand. So that was Game 57. Game 58, the Calgary Flames wrap up 4 home games in a week, as on Saturday, March the 12th, the Calgary Flames went from one end of the spectrum to not quite the other end, but after playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, they have now going to host the Detroit Red Wings, and that was a 5 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. So did the Calgary Flames take Detroit a little lightly? Considering they're still not a contender yet, but they're still a rebuilding team, this was a game that we had to have. If we want to say we're still not contenders, well, I'm going to say we didn't disappoint in that. As in the first period, once again, the Calgary Flames did open up the scoring. On the power play, it was Elias Lindholm who got his 30th goal of the season at 9:22 of the first period to make it 1-0 for Calgary. And that's actually how things stood after the first period, with Calgary up 1-0. Second period, there was actually no scoring to report. However, Calgary definitely terribly outplayed the Detroit Red Wings, as they outshot them 19-1 in the first period, and they outshot them 12-4 in the second period. It was Thomas Greiss. He was definitely playing well for the Detroit Red Wings, because this game definitely was a blowout for the Calgary Flames. But it wasn't until the third period that the Calgary Flames were able to get a little more offense, and the Detroit Red Wings getting a little bit of their game back in the third period. However, Calgary was able to get another goal on the power play, as it was Tyler Toffoli who got his 17th of the season, 7th since coming to Calgary. This was at the 8:25-minute mark of the third period to make it 2-0 for Calgary. And then Blake Coleman scored his 13th of the season at the 15:38-minute mark to make it 3-0 for Calgary. And ultimately, the Calgary Flames were able to hang on, and they take this one 3-1. There was also a fight that also took place in the third period, as there was Sean Monahan. He did board with Luke Witkowski, but then Milan Lucic, just like in the first game of the matchup earlier in the season, he had a fight with Giovanni Smith. So Milan Lucic and Giovanni Smith definitely reacquainted in this game later in the period. And actually looking at the season series, Calgary beat Detroit both times 3-0 back on October 21st and on March 12th. So Calgary outscored Detroit 3-0 both times, and they also outshot the Detroit Red Wings 43-19. as Detroit had 14 of their 19 shots in the third period. So they led the way for the Calgary Flames. Well, it was Matthew Tkachuk was the only one with the 2 assists for the multi-point game, and it was Jacob Markstrom who was back in net. He made 19 saves for the shutout, 9th of the season, and 1 shutout short of tying Miikka Kiprusoff's record for 10 shutouts in a season, as that was a franchise record that Kiprusoff made in the 2005-06 season, the year that he won the Vezina Trophy, by the way. So Jacob Markstrom, he might make some history this year with the Calgary Flames with the 9 shutouts. And then Thomas Greiss, he was the reason why it was only 3-0 for Detroit, for Calgary, as it could have been worse. He made 40 saves and 43 shots, so kudos to him, at least for standing tall for the Detroit Red Wings. So that was game number 58. Game 59, this happened on the next night on Sunday, March the 13th, as the Calgary Flames were back on the road, taking on the Colorado Avalanche. This was at the Ball Arena, 6 p.m. puck drop. This is when I'm going to say the Calgary Flames were running empty, as this was their only 5th game in 7 days. They had to travel, and daylight saving time happened. So Calgary had even less time to get ready for this game, as the Calgary Flames taking on the Colorado Avalanche. But how did things go? All things considered, that the Calgary Flames beat Colorado in overtime a week earlier. I'm going to say this was a little bit of a slap into reality, but these are the top 2 teams in the Western Conference, and may I dare say, Western Conference final preview? Well, the first period definitely got us a reminder of 2019 again. It was Nathan MacKinnon who scored his 20th goal of the season on the power play to make it 1-0 for Colorado. And that was the only scorer in the first period, as Colorado took a 1-0 lead. Actually, there was no scoring to go in the second period, so it was still 1-0 for Colorado going third period, even though the Flames looked like they were out of gas, so they actually had the edge in shots for this whole game. Over the third period, 2019 memories came back, as it was Nathan MacKinnon who scored his 2nd of the season, 21st of the season, 2nd of the game, at the exactly 4-minute mark, to make it 2-0 for Colorado. And then ultimately it was Mikko Rantanen who put it in the empty net, 28th goal of the season at 18:22. So Colorado, ultimately, they won this one 3-0. So kind of a little bit back to reality, but I'm going to say the Flames played already, all things considered, strength of schedule and the fact they were out of gas. But as they say, the Calgary Flames were shut out. However, they did outshoot the Colorado Avalanche 46-32 overall, and there wasn't too much rough stuff, as these are not a physical game. I think I say Calgary was out of gas, and Colorado wanted to prove that they were the better team after when they lost that 4-3 game in overtime the week earlier. So obviously there was no one who led the way for the Calgary Flames, as we were shut out, but it was Dan Vladar who was in that. I'm going to say did pretty well. He made 29 saves and 31 shots for Calgary. It was Dan Vladar who was in net for Calgary when we won that game in overtime in Colorado a week earlier, and then obviously leading away for the Avalanche. Well, Nathan MacKinnon, who had 2 goals, and then Mikko Rantanen had a goal and assist. And keep in mind, they did not have Gabriel Landeskog for this game, as he was injured, and Calgary actually on this weekend set with Detroit and Colorado. Oliver Shillington was out with a lower body injury, so Michael Stone actually drew in the lineup on both of those games. And then Darcy Kemper, he had the shutout with 46 saves. So after having a busy week, I'm going to still say taking 3 out of 5 was pretty good. As I say, we got the biggest wins against Edmonton and Tampa Bay. That's all I got to say for the Calgary Flames. But they definitely earned some time off, as they had a couple days off to come back home. But before the next game, and that was game 59, the Calgary Flames made a trade ahead of the game 60 against the New Jersey Devils, as I made a video on it talking about the Calle Jarnkrok trade, as the Calgary Flames acquired Calle Jarnkrok from the Seattle Kraken. In exchange, the Seattle Kraken, they get 3 draft picks for Calle Jarnkrok, as the Calgary Flames send Seattle's, or Calgary sends 3 draft picks. The 2022 second round pick, that was part of the Sam Bennett trade. So the 2022 second round pick via the Florida Panthers, third round pick in 2023, and it's 2024 seventh round pick. And Seattle gets to retain 50% of his salary as Calle Jarnkrok's $2 million cap hit. So the Calgary Flames added some more forward depth for the stretch drive and hopefully a long run to the Stanley Cup playoffs and to the finals and win the cup. I can dream, but it's a big move for the Calgary Flames. And I made a separate video on breaking down that trade, but that trade happened ahead of Game 60, which is the next game we'll talk about, which will be the last game before we move on to other business. So Game 60, after when the Calgary Flames acquired Calle Jarnkrok, obviously he wasn't able to make his debut and get into the lineup in time, but on Wednesday, March 16th, the Calgary Flames were back at home to take on the New Jersey Devils, and that was an 8 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. How did the Calgary Flames do after having that busy stretch of 5 games in 7 nights? I'm going to say the Calgary Flames had a little offense that went around in this one. Well, the first goal of the game came actually not until the 9:43 minute mark of the first period. It was Brett Ritchie. Yeah, Brett Ritchie actually scored his first of the season at 9:43 to make it 1-0 for Calgary. Maybe with Calle Jarnkrok coming on the scene, maybe we're going to get even more scoring from our fourth line. So it was 1-0 for Calgary at that point. Then the New Jersey Devils were able to tie up the game as one of their younger players, Dawson Mercer, scored his 15th goal of the season. This was at the 16:21 minute mark. So it was a 1-1 game. However, Andrew Mangiapane did answer back for Calgary as he did score his 30th goal of the season at 18:22 of the first period. So Calgary took a 2-1 lead, and that's how things stood after the first period. Calgary up 2-1. Then going into the second period, as there wasn't too many penalties at all in this game, as going to the second period, it was PK Subban who did score for the New Jersey Devils, his 4th of the season at 5-1, to make it 2-2 at that point. And the New Jersey Devils definitely were in this game till they weren't, as later in the second period it was Dylan Dubé, another player on our fourth line, has picked up a goal. Hopefully this will maybe bring up some more internal competition for the Calgary Flames, as Dylan Dubé got his 7th goal of the season at 7-4 the second period to make it 3-2. And then Calgary added more as Matthew Tkachuk, who got his 20th goal of the season, is at 9:31 the second period to make it 4-2 for Calgary. And then Milan Lucic scored his 10th goal of the season at 10:33 of the second period. So Calgary had a 5-2 lead, and that's actually how things stood after the second period. Calgary up 5-2. Then going into the third period, Jersey was able to get within a little closer to the Calgary Flames, as it was Igor Shakhanovic who got his 15th goal of the season. I'm sure I butchered that name, but it's a name I haven't heard much. But he scored to make it 5-3 for New Jersey at that point, 3:51 of the third period. And then Johnny Gaudreau eventually put it away in the empty net. This was at the 7:30 minute mark of the third period to make it 6-3. And ultimately, the Calgary Flames won this one 6-3, as they showed they were the better team against the New Jersey Devils, as the Calgary Flames also shot the New Jersey Devils 40-33 overall. So leading the way for the Calgary Flames was Matthew Tkachuk, who had the most points with 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points, and Dylan Dubé had a goal and an assist. So when it comes to the goaltending story of the game, Jacob Markstrom made 30 saves for Calgary, while the New Jersey Devils, it was Nico Hischier who had the only multi-point game for the Devils with 2 assists. So when it comes to the goaltending story of the game, it was Nico Dawes who did start for the New Jersey Devils, but he made 15 saves, 19 shots, and after he allowed the 4th goal, he got replaced by John Gillies. Yeah, the same John Gillies that to start his career with the Calgary Flames, he made 19 saves and 20 shots. So he came in cold, had that 5th goal, and then he stabilized the goaltending that way. So they say the Calgary Flames wrap up this segment with a 6-3 win, and also the Calgary Flames swept the New Jersey Devils as they beat them 5-3 back on October 26th. So Calgary went 4-2 in this stretch, but they had that busy 5 games in 7 nights. So after 60 games, the Calgary Flames are 37-16-7 for 81 points. They are still first in the Pacific Division. So if we take a look at the stats and standings, shall we? I'll just take a quick look at the stats. So the top 5 goal scorers for the Calgary Flames. Well, you got Elias Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane, all each tied for first with 30 goals. Matthew Tkachuk has 28 goals, and Johnny Gaudreau has 27 goals. So I'm going to say maybe we'll have at least 4 goal scorers of 30 plus on the Calgary Flames. And then Tyler Toffoli overall has 17 goals, but 7 of those goals came as the Calgary Flame. So when it comes to assists, well, Johnny Gaudreau leads the team with 52 assists. Matthew Tkachuk is second with 43 assists. Rasmus Anderson has 35 assists. Elias Lindholm has 33 assists, and Tyler Toffoli has 23 assists, but half of that also came with the Montreal Canadiens. So that is the assists and the goals leader. So point leader, Johnny Gaudreau leads the way with 79 points. Matthew Tkachuk is second with 71. Elias Lindholm has 63 for third. Andrew Mangiapane is fourth for 44, and Tyler Toffoli, the combination of Calgary and Montreal, is fifth with 40 points overall. So if you look at the NHL, shall we, when it comes to points, Connor McDavid leads the way with 87, while Leon Draisaitl is second with 84, tied with Jonathan Huberdeau in Florida with 84, but Johnny Gaudreau, he's actually fourth in scoring in points with 79, 2 points ahead of Austin Matthews for the top 5. And then when it comes to the goal scoring, Austin Matthews lead the way with 45 at Toronto. Then Leon Draisaitl and Chris Kreider each have 40. Alexander Ovechkin is tied with Kyle Connor with 38 for the top 4. And then the leading assist leader is actually Jonathan Huberdeau, 65 Florida. And then Roman Josi with Nashville, and then Terry Panarin with 55 tied for second. Fourth in the league is Connor McDavid, 53. But who's fifth is Johnny Gaudreau. However, he's tied with Adam Fox. He's up Fox from the New York Rangers. So that is the leading when it comes to the Calgary Flames and the league. And then when it comes to goaltender, well, Jacob Markstrom leads the league in shutouts with 9. As Jacob Markstrom's overall numbers for this season, in 47 games, he has 29 wins, 11 assists, 6 overtime losses for 209 goals against average, and a .907 save percentage. And then if you just take a look at Dan Vidar's numbers, is he has 2 shutouts. In 50 games, he has 8-5-1 for 290 goals against average and a .903 save percentage. So I'm going to say we have pretty good goaltending overall. So when it comes to the team leaders, when it comes to where the Flames rank in special teams, well, power play, Calgary's 11th in the league at 23.4%. Toronto Maple Leafs lead the way with 29.4%. Power play, penalty kill, the Calgary Flames are 4th in the league at 85.4%, while the Carolina Hurricanes are 1st in penalty kill at 89%. So shots per game, well, the Calgary Flames are 5th in the league. This says 29, but the Los Angeles Kings are 1st. So the Calgary Flames special teams are in the top 10, as well as shots against per game, which has also been another big part of our success. So now if you look at the standings, so starting off in the Pacific Division, the Calgary Flames are in first, as they have 81 points in 60 games. The Los Angeles Kings are second. They have 76 points in 63 games. And then the Edmonton Oilers, they are third with 72 points in 61 games. Then the Vegas Golden Knights, they have 70 points in 63 games. For fourth, fifth is Vancouver, 67 points, 62 games. Sixth place is Anaheim, 65.63 games. Seventh place is the San Jose Sharks, 60 points, 60 games. And then the Seattle Kraken at 42 points in 62 games. So then comes the Central Division. Colorado's leading the way, 91 points in 61 games. St. Louis the second, 77 points in 60 games. Minnesota Wild third, they have 74 points, 59 games. And then Nashville, they're fourth, 74 points in 61 games. Dallas is fifth, 69 points in 59 games. Winnipeg sixth, 66 points, 61 games. Chicago seventh, 53 points, 61 games. And the Arizona Coyotes, they have 44 points, 60 games. So if you look at potential playoff matchups right now in the Western Conference, Colorado would be hosting the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Calgary Flames would be hosting the Nashville Predators, Or you got the Los Angeles Kings will host the Edmonton Oilers for the 2-3 in the Pacific, and St. Louis will be hosting Minnesota for the 2-3 in the Central. Calgary would be in the first in the Pacific, but taking on the first wild card. But I'm going to say teams that might still have a chance to make the playoffs. I'm going to say keep a watch for the Dallas Stars. They have 69 points in 59 games. They have 4 games in hand on the Vegas Golden Knights, and they were only 1 point behind them. And I think Vancouver, maybe 6-7 points in 62 games. But I think Dallas has the inside edge. And to be honest with you, I actually think it would be hilarious if Vegas misses the playoffs. I wouldn't be too sad about that, but we'll see. So that's the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference. If you go to the Atlantic, Florida is leading with 88 points in 61 games. Then Tampa Bay second, 84 points in 60 games. And then third is 83 points, 61 points for Toronto. And then fourth place, Boston, 79 points, 61 games. And then it really falls off. It's in fifth place. You got Detroit, 57 points, 61 games. Buffalo, 48 points, 61 games. Ottawa, 47 points, 60 games. And then last place is Montreal, 41 points, 61 games. So that's the Atlantic. Metropolitan, it's still pretty close for the division lead. Carolina's first, they have 87 points in 60 games. Pittsburgh second, 83 points, 62 games. New York Rangers, they have 81 points, 61 games. Then the Washington Capitals, they have 78 points, 62 games. Then you got a little bit of a gap after that, as you got fifth place Columbus, 65 points, 62 games. New York Islanders, 59 points, 58 games. Philadelphia Flyers, 49 points, 60 games. And the New Jersey Devils, 49 points in 61 games. So if you look at the playoff picture in the East right now, as Florida has first place in the conference, Florida would be hosting Washington, and Carolina would be hosting Boston. So definitely a couple interesting matchups. Then the 2-3 for the Atlantic, you would have Tampa Bay hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Pittsburgh Penguins hosting the New York Rangers for the 2-3 in the Metropolitan. So that's how the playoff picture looks, and I'm going to say the 8 teams that are in the Eastern Conference playoff picture are going to be the 8 teams, because the Columbus Blue Jackets are the first team outside looking in, has 65 points. They are 13 points behind Washington. So unless someone collapses and someone really picks it up, I think the 8 teams in the East are going to be the 8 teams participating in the playoffs. So that's it for the stat standings. So let's bring up the next segment in the Stockton Heat Quick Hits. So here's that. So for the Stockton Heat Quick Hits, they're also fairly busy in this segment. As Game 47, this was on Wednesday, March the 9th, as the Stockton Heat were hosting the San Diego Gulls. This was at the Stockton Arena. 7:30 p.m. puck drop. Stockton won that game 5-2. Jacob Pelche had the hat trick with 3 goals. Glenn Godwin and Connor Mackey each had 2 assists. Dustin Wolf made 31 saves. Game 48 on Friday, March the 11th, the Stockton Heat were in San Jose, taking on the San Jose Barracuda. This was an 8 p.m. puck drop at the SAP Center, and actually Stockton won that game 6-5 in overtime. Yusuf Al-Maki actually had 2 assists. Jacob Pelche had a goal and assist. And it was Adam Werner who was in net, made 20 saves, and actually it not only needed overtime, it needed a shootout, as it was, I'll have to make note that actually wasn't a shootout, as it was Jonas Klingvall who did score the shootout winner, but that was not until the 6th round. Then game 49 on Saturday, March the 12th, Stockton Heat and the San Jose Barracuda were at it again at the SAP Center, 7 p.m. puck drop. Stockton Heat won this one again, 6-3 for the win. There's Emil Pettersson who had 2 goals. Ito Taloa had a goal and assist. And then Connor Mackey, Mark Simpson, and Justin Kirkland each had 2 assists. And I should also mention that Alex Gallant and Montano Boinchi fought, and Kevin Gravel and Zachary Gallant fought. So there were a couple fights in this one. And Dustin Wolf made 30 saves in that one. And then this one was a game that got made up. So it was the game 17 was on Monday, March the 14th, as the Stockton Heat were hosting the Bakersfield Condors. That was a 7:30 puck drop at the Soft Arena. That game originally was scheduled for Wednesday, December 1st. So, leading the way, Jacob Pelche had 2 goals, Ito Taloa had 1 goal, and Dustin Wolf made 30 saves. And then the last game for the quick hits was on game 50 on Wednesday, March the 16th, as the Bakersfield Condors were at home or on the road against the Stockton Heat. Bakersfield actually won this one, as it was 5-1 for the Stockton Heat, as Byron Fraser was the only one that got the goal for Stockton. And if you've got to read the summary, this is the Edmonton Oilers Calgary Flames farm team. There were definitely some rough stuff. 13:38 the third period. There's too many to list. So I want you to read the headline. There was definitely a coach's misconduct in that one. So as that was a wild one. As I said, Bakersfield won 5-1. Adam Werner made 9 saves. He started the game and allowed 3 goals. And Dustin Wolf picked up the slack, made 17 saves. I forgot to put down the stats, player stats for the Stockton Heat, and I feel like we're running long anyway. So for the Stockton Heat, after 70 games, or 50 games, should say, keep in mind in the American Hockey League, they play 68 games. Stockton Heat, just like the Calgary Flames, are also first in their division. As the Stockton Heat, they have 35 wins, 10 losses, 4 overtime, and 1 shootout loss for 75 points. So the Flames and the Heat are still looking good overall, shall we say. So now we'll get to the final part of the video, as we'll take a look ahead to what the next episode will be for the Calgary Flames, the next 6 games. And I'm going to say it's definitely a little bit of a variety for the Calgary Flames in this one. As Game 61, this will be on Friday, March the 18th, as the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Buffalo Sabres. That'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. Game 62, this will be on Saturday, March the 19th, as the Calgary Flames will be on the road, as they'll be taking on the Vancouver Canucks. That'll be an 8 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night in Canada. In Game 63, this will be on Tuesday, March the 22nd. The Calgary Flames will be back at home, as they will be hosting the San Jose Sharks. That will be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then Game 64 on Friday, March the 25th, the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Arizona Coyotes. That will be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. Then I'm going to say the 2 games that will highlight the 6-game stretch will be the last 2 games. So Game 65, this will be on Saturday, March the 26th, as the Calgary Flames will be wrapping up their season series with the Edmonton Oilers, as Calgary will be hosting the Edmonton Oilers. That will be an 8 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome, Hockey Night in Canada. The Game 66, this will be on Tuesday, March the 29th, as the Calgary Flames will be wrapping up their season series with the Colorado Avalanche. This time the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Colorado Avalanche. 7 p.m. puck drops. Looking at the schedule when it comes to the next 6 games, if we are still looking to be contenders, there's some games we have to have, especially against Buffalo, San Jose, and Arizona. Expect competitive with Vancouver, because Vancouver has been pressing hard, and it's always competitive with Edmonton, and then the Colorado, which is definitely going to be the biggie for the top 2 teams in the Western Conference. Now when it comes to the Stockton Heat, they'll play a few more games for the next episode as well. Game 51, this will be on Friday, March 18th, as the Stockton Heat will be in Colorado, taking on the Colorado Eagles. Budweiser Event Center, 7:05 puck drop. Game 52 on Saturday, March the 19th. The Stockton Heat will still be in Colorado, taking on the Eagles again. 7:05 puck drop at the Budweiser Event Center. Game 53, Tuesday, March the 22nd. Stockton Heat will be on the road as they'll be taking on the San Jose Barracuda. That'll be an 8 p.m. puck drop at the SAP Center. The game 54, the Stockton Heat will be playing where the Abbotsford Heat used to play, but now the Abbotsford Canucks. Actually, they'll be in Stockton, as the Stockton Heat be hosting the Abbotsford Canucks. That'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. In game 55, the Stockton Heat will be playing the San Diego Gulls in San Diego at the Pechanga Arena. That'll be a 6 p.m. puck drop. Sunday, March 27th, so a fairly busy stretch for both teams. But I'm going to say the Calgary Flames, are still looking pretty right now, being first in the Pacific Division. And the way you've been winning games, it just feels different from 2019 about this team. That I think this team has what it takes to do something special. Just want to get out of the first round, please. When you've been a Flames fan all your life, too young to appreciate what they did in 1989, dealt with a lot of first round heartbreak and then lots of non-playoffs, and then 2004 was spectacular. It was special and unexpected, and then back to blah again. But we'll see. But I'm just liking how things are looking for the Calgary Flames right now. And then, of course, we acquired Tarek Toffoli and Calle Jarnkrok in the trade deadline, so we'll see how things shape up with any more moves at the NHL trade deadline. Of course, there'll be future videos on that, and I plan to do a live stream on my second channel on deadline day, since I'm actually going to be off work that day, so look for that. So anyways, I want to say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hitman, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, as I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, where I recap games and stories and that, but I also do a variety of non-sports content, keywords being when I've had time, which hasn't been much lately, unfortunately, with personal blogs, stand-up comedy, and I'll share my experiences I'm on the road. We're at a sporting event, and I've done some vlogging to go, so if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along this Calgary sports fans journey, you do just make sure you like, subscribe. I'll send my other social links down in the description below for other ways you can follow me. And I do have my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts, where I exclusively put my short form content on there. And I'd say I'm thinking about doing a live stream for my feelings on the NHL trade deadline, and break down my thoughts on any trades that happened that day throughout the NHL. That will go on my second channel as well, so watch for that. So I just want to say, go Flames go, and go Heat go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.